All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Start the Week with Spencer. This is our weekly webinar where we take questions from parents all around the world. Parents join and ask questions about children with special needs, early childhood education, the Doman Method. So whatever your question is, wherever you are in the world, go ahead and start typing your questions into the comments box, and I'll get to them in order. We stream this Q&A simultaneously on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So whatever platform you're watching me on, I will try my best to answer you directly. And I always urge people, ask your questions quickly and upfront, because sometimes I find in the last 5 or 10 minutes of the Q&A, that's when I get all the questions and I don't have time to get to all of them. All right, so while I'm waiting for your questions to come in, I'm going to start out with a common question that we get from parents, and it's why do we teach children to read, especially children with special needs? Why is that such an important focus of the Doman Method? Now, if you joined the Q&A last week, I talked about the 6 different components of the Doman Method, and one of the 6 components is cognitive development and speech development. That's just one of 6 different parts of the Doman Method. And so reading plays a huge role in cognitive development with children with special needs. And so many parents will ask us, why do we think it's so important? Because when parents with special needs come to Doman International, usually they kind of fit into one of 2 groups. One group of parents know that reading is a big challenge or concern for their child. These are parents that usually have children who are a bit older, and they say, my child hasn't learned how to read, my child has difficulty reading, my child has low comprehension with reading, I'm really, really concerned. The second group of parents are parents who say something like, Spencer, I wish reading was a concern for my child, but my child has much bigger issues. My child can't walk, my child can't talk, my child has big behavioral issues, and reading just isn't a concern for us right now. And so over the next 5 or 10 minutes, I hope that you leave this session with at least an understanding of why reading is important for your child, and in fact, important for all children. Okay. So I'd like to go through these reasons with you right now. And of course, as I'm going through this, for everyone who's joined late, start typing your questions into the comments box, and I'll get to them in order. So why is it so important to teach a child with special needs to read? Or in fact, why is it important to teach any child how to read? Well, and I think sometimes parents might think, well, isn't that the point of school? Like, why would I ever do that at home? Well, the first reason is that for a child to live an independent life and to hold down almost any job, they need to be able to read. Sure, there might be a few jobs in today's world that don't require reading, but they are few and far between, and they usually don't pay well. And so if a child is going to be able to live an independent life, they have to be able to read. It's a fact of life. And so that's one very important reason to do it. And by the way, our educational system does not do a good job of educating kids to read. In the United States, 2/3 of children at grade 4 cannot read at age level. 2/3, so 67% of children do not read at age level. And by the way, it's not better at 8th grade. It actually gets worse. So it is a huge concern, and our educational system does not do a good job at teaching kids to read. The second reason why it's important to teach kids to read is that it's one of the few cognitive abilities that you can give your child that once they do it independently, they can grow their own skills, right? Once you teach a child how to read books, now there's a whole world of information that they have access to that they didn't have access to before. One of the greatest ways we can increase our own knowledge is through reading. And so when you give that child the gift of reading, now they don't have to depend on you for learning everything. They have an independent way of learning information about the world. Now, the third reason why it's really important to teach children with special needs how to read is that we have found that when we teach a child to read, it very often improves their speech development. So especially for those of you who have children with difficulties with speech, low vocabulary, or perhaps even no speech, one of the great things about teaching a child to read is that reading is the visual form of language. I'll say that one more time. Reading is the visual form of language, right? So if I say the word to you, lion, that information goes through your ear to your brain, and you understand, you picture a lion in your head, right? And that's because neurons in your auditory pathway sent that information to the brain and you understand it. Well, it's the exact same if I show you the word lion, right? You look at this word, even if I don't say it to you, and you instantaneously know what that means. So reading is the visual form of language. And one of the remarkable things about most children with special needs is most of them are better visual learners than auditory learners. Most of them are better visual learners than auditory learners. Parents tell me this all the time. They say, oh, Spencer, I could explain something to my child and I'm talking to them and they look lost. They don't seem to be able to implement the instructions I give them. But when I show them something, they get it. If I'm showing them pictures in a book, they're like, oh yeah, that's, they know what the different pictures are. They get it, right? If the parents can present something to them visually, they understand it. So because reading is the visual form of language, and because most children with special needs are better visual learners than auditory learners, very often when we start presenting language through the visual pathway, we very often start to see improvements in comprehension in the children and improvements in speech with the children. One of my favorite things that I ever heard from a mother, this was a mother in New York City with a child with autism. He was 4 years old and she started our reading program and he started to speak for the first time. And she said, Spencer, these were her words. She said, the reading program gave my son his voice. Because the first thing he started to do was repeat the words that he was seeing in the reading program. And then he started to spontaneously use his speech. Then he started to speak in sentences and he was off to the races, right? Now that child goes to like very prestigious private school in New York City and reads his head off, and is a really brilliant kid, the kind of kid that tells you all of this information about things you don't know. But it all started with this reading program. And so I always say to parents, do not underestimate the power of teaching a child to read and how much that can improve comprehension and speech. So I wanted to start with the reasons why to teach your child to read, because once you understand why, then the hows are easy, right? It's not that difficult to show cards to a child, but understanding why we do it is so much more important. Now I want to show all of you some materials that we have from. These are materials created by Doman Learning, which is basically the sister organization to Doman International. And so we have recently added pictures to this reading program because we have found that when we add images, we get better interest in children, more enjoyment with the reading program. And when you get better interest and enjoyment with kids, you get better retention, meaning they learn the word faster and they remember them for longer because they're enjoying it more. So you can see that now, along with the words, there are beautiful pictures to teach a child these different animals. And the way we would, with the Doman Method, present these materials is first we would start out by announcing the category. We're going to say, learn about animals. All right. Then we show the picture first and then the word. So you would say zebra, and then you'd show the word and say zebra, tiger, tiger, giraffe, giraffe. All right. And please notice I show the picture first and then the word. Why do I show the picture of lion before the word lion? It's because I want the child to know what a lion is. Once the child sees the picture, they're like, got it. That's what a lion is. Now, when I come and show the word lion, they're interested because they know what a lion is. They're interested in it. They probably like it. So now when I show the word, they have something to connect the word to. Right? Elephant and elephant. So with the Doman learning materials, there are 5, in every category, there are 5 pictures and then the 5 corresponding words that go with it. Now, please also note that the pictures and the words are on separate cards. This is done purposefully. We do this because, many times when you see kind of like flashcards for kids that are usually mimicking the Doman method, they'll put the picture and then the word underneath it, right? They'll put elephant under the picture. The problem with that is that a child, if you show these two things to a child, they're always going to be attracted by the color and excitement of a picture rather than the word. Even adults, right? We're much more attracted in something like that than this. So we have to separate the pictures from the words, and that ensures the child sees both and learns both, right? And learn to read seeing the single words. All right. Well, everyone, I hope that's helpful, going over the reasons why we teach children to read. If you want to find these materials, you can find them at domanlearning.com. Reading is a subject that we cover in pretty much all of our books. We cover it in our books for children with special needs, the book, The Doman Method, From Special Needs to Wellness. I wrote a whole chapter about reading for that book. And also for the book Answering Autism, which is specifically for parents of children with autism, there's a whole chapter in there about how to get started with this reading program. And of course, in the book, I go into much more depth than I do here with how to teach reading. And then in the Doman Method course, which is our online course, and also our Answering Autism course, right? We in August, we're launching the Answering Autism course. We have about actually 2 hours of lectures where I teach how do you go from teaching a child words all the way to getting them to read books. Like, what does that entire pathway look like? All right, everyone, I hope you find that helpful. I'm going to go to questions now. I see a couple questions on Instagram. So I have a question from Sandra who says, "Hi, Spencer. For another language, what will you recommend?" So one of the great things, Sandra, about this specific reading program with pictures is it also doubles as a foreign language program, okay? So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm teaching Spanish for a second instead of English. And let's say I'm not even a very confident Spanish speaker, right? Well, we could use the pictures to teach the words in Spanish, right? So I could say tigre in Spanish, and then I would show, of course, I have English words here, but I would show the single word in Spanish. So I show tigre, right? Or if I have jirafa, which is giraffe, and then I would show the word jirafa, right? So the pictures are very effective. Like I said, using pictures helps children improve in their comprehension. Well, we can use this to improve comprehension in the first language, but we can also use pictures to improve comprehension in the second language. And so pictures and words are a great way to improve comprehension in a second language. Okay. If you go to Doman Learning, we have reading materials there in other languages as well. So you can look through the different languages and see if the one you're looking for is there. Sliwa is saying, where can we find these pictures? So they're at domanlearning.com. Yeah, you have to go to domanlearning.com, and if you've already signed up for the Reading Before School course, we're giving you free access to the materials because you've already signed up for the course. We don't want to charge those parents more just because we're giving an additional set of materials with the pictures. So if you've already signed up for Reading Before School course, you just log in and you will see in your first month materials pictures. If you have not signed up for the Reading Before School course, then you would have to enroll in that and you get access to the materials. All right, Lily Suk is asking, is the online course free? So Lily, no, the online course is not free. We actually have online courses. If we are talking about children with special needs, we currently offer our Doman Method course. It's called the Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness in English, Spanish, Italian, Russian, Serbian, and Arabic. So if you're interested in knowing, there are differences in price with different languages, largely because of costs of translation. So the best thing to do is send us a message. Lily, I see you're contacting us on Instagram. The best thing to do is send us a message, and one of our representatives will reach out to you and answer your questions about like what would the cost be in your language, what are different payment options we have, because we have different options. We've tried to make the course as accessible as possible for parents. So just reach out to us, and one of our representatives will help you. All right, let's see. All right, I don't see any questions yet from Facebook or YouTube. If you're listening to us on Facebook and YouTube, go ahead and start typing your questions into the comments box, and we will get to them in order. Right now, we're getting a lot of questions coming in from Instagram. All right, Sandra is saying, do you recommend digital bits or digital books? So, Sandra, I'm not sure if I understand your question correctly. With older children, when I say older children, I mean children who are maybe 3-4 years old and up. I think it's perfectly fine to show them some materials digitally. In other words, you could show them things like pictures and words on a screen and not just on cards. And in fact, with the Doman learning materials, parents have the option to show them as a slideshow on a screen or to print them out and show them as cards. So in that sense, yes, I do. I don't recommend for children under about 2 years of age using a screen for a bunch of different reasons. First of all, babies learn faster and better when they are not on a screen, when they're face to face with a person with visual aids. They learn better and faster. That's been demonstrated, by the way, with certain scientific studies at Stanford. They showed that children learn better one-on-one. I'm talking about babies, learn faster one-on-one with an adult working with them rather than through a screen. So even when they're taught the exact same information, they learn better one-on-one with the person. So I wouldn't recommend it for a baby. As children get older, I think that using digital materials is okay. Yeah, and that's why at Doman Learning we've decided to give parents digital materials so they can choose. Okay, the next question comes from Sandrak again, who says, I'm in the course right now. Did you have the material there? So Sandrak, if you're in the Doman Method course, right, you're attending it right now. No, the reading materials are not in that course. They're in another course on Doman Learning, okay? But we do give the parents in the course, in the Doman Method course, the materials at a greatly reduced price, but like greatly reduced. So we talk about the materials in the third week of the course. So I don't recommend you actually buy them right now. Wait a couple of weeks and we'll talk about it in the course. Okay. By the way, welcome to the course. I'm so glad that you're attending. All right. Who else has a question? Doesn't matter whether you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, or on YouTube. Go ahead and type your questions into the comments box, and we will get to them in order. So while I'm waiting for additional questions, with the picture materials that we've added with the reading before school materials, we've tried to adhere to specific guidelines that were first established by my grandfather, Glenn, in terms of teaching materials. So, first of all, it's very important when you're teaching children with images that the images are precise and clear, right? Meaning that you've got beautiful quality images that are clear and easy for the child to see. Sometimes with certain teaching materials and flashcards, last week my brother and I were looking at materials that kind of claimed they were Doman Method materials that were being sold online by some group I'd never heard of before. And when I looked at the materials, a lot of them were very cartoonish. They weren't actually high quality images. And because I think they were going for something cheap and easy rather than really good quality. And so it's important. You can see that that's a beautiful image. And so it's important that it's high quality images. The second thing which is important is it's important to have nothing in the background. So you'll see that like on a picture of a lion, we don't have trees in the background and a flock of birds flying and clouds, because we want to make it absolutely clear to the child what we're teaching them. So by having only one thing, it makes it easy for the child to know exactly what it is that we're teaching. The third thing is we teach the child the unambiguous name of whatever that is. So for example, if I'm showing, this is from another set, I've got a set here from flags, right? We're not going to just say this is a flag. We're going to give the most precise name that we can give. So in this case, it's the flag of the United Kingdom, right? We give the exact name. We wouldn't just show a dog and say this is a dog. We'd say this is a Chihuahua or a Saint Bernard, right? We'd give the child the most precise name that we could. And then the last thing is we want as much as possible to teach the child something new, right? We want to take the outside world, that world of knowledge the child doesn't necessarily see at home, and bring it to the child and teach them new things. And so that way the child isn't just learning how to read with this program, they're learning a lot of useful information, which is going to grow their comprehension about the world. All right, we have some questions that are coming in. And here's a question. This is more of a comment from Radharani. Very grateful for the picture addition to the reading materials. It's so attractive for the child, Padma. Okay, thank you for that. And then the next question is, does this digital edition need to be done for couplets and sentences too? So to answer your question, no. Right now, we are focusing just on adding images to single words. And one of the reasons for that is single words are the first step in the reading program. And for the majority of children, they are happy to see single words written on their own without pictures. But there are certain children that we found when we just show written words, they get kind of bored quickly. And so the pictures are really there to keep the child engaged and interested. When we get to couplets and sentences, by that point, most of the children, if they've learned the words with pictures, at that point, they really enjoy the reading program. And so when we get to couplets and sentences, they're happy to see the written couplets and sentences without pictures. But the other thing is that couplets and sentences are also more meaningful, right? They're more exciting. For example, if you have a sentence like "Dad eats pizza," or the baby loves music, they're just naturally more interesting in words because there's more context. So yeah, when we get to couplets and sentences, no pictures have been added for that part of the program. We only have pictures right now in the single words and the books. By the way, for those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, couplet sentences books, these are homemade books. These are all steps in the Doman Method reading pathway, where we take children, both children with special needs and neurotypical kids, we first teach them how to read words, and then we gradually work with them to get them reading books independently. And these are all steps along that pathway that we talk about in our books and courses. Good question. All right, I've got another question here from Yuko who says, can we paste the word card on the exact material? For example, can we hang the card refrigerator on the fridge? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's a really nice way to teach a child that reading is just a part of life, right? And so you put the word table on the table, you put the word chair on a chair, you put the word refrigerator on the refrigerator. And as you walk around the house with the child, you point it out. You say, look, it says chair. Look, it says table. Look, it says refrigerator. I think it's just a fun addition to the reading program. And it's a good way to show the child that reading is natural. It's not something that's forced or only for certain times of day. It's something which is an important part of life. Great question, Yuko. Thanks for asking. Okay. Lily is saying, can you mention us the website where we can find the flashcards, please? So I'm typing it in the chat box. It's domanlearning.com. I've just typed it on to the Instagram chat, and now I'm going to type it on the, I'll put it up on my screen too so that everyone can see it. There you go. So now you can see there www.domanlearning.com. Yeah, so that is our that is the link where you can find our reading courses and math courses and their materials. Okay. Now, if you're a child with special needs and you're really coming to the Doman Method for the first time, I actually wouldn't recommend you just go to domanlearning.com and start signing up for courses. I'd recommend you reach out to Doman International so that we can learn more about your child and recommend what courses would be best for your kid. Because Doman International, which is our organization for teaching the Doman Method to parents with kids with special needs, we have many courses specific for children with special needs that include the reading program and math program. So I don't want parents out there to go and necessarily buy a lot of Doman learning materials only to learn that Doman International has a better course for their special needs child. On the other hand, if you have a well neurotypical child and you just want to teach your child to read or do math, go to domanlearning.com and find the courses there. It's going to be very helpful. All right, let's see what other questions we have. My daughter, so this is a question from Flowers, who's saying, my daughter is still not enjoying words without pictures. She is 19 months old. So Flowers, that's your child is why we've decided to add pictures to the reading program. Some of you might have seen this, but on our Doman Learning Instagram page, I released a video saying, listen, we made a mistake when we released the Doman Learning reading materials without pictures, because there was I would say maybe 20% of children, which it's not a majority, but 20% is still maybe 1 in 5 kids, that when we were just showing them reading cards without images, they were getting bored quickly. Maybe they would watch a few categories, and then we started to notice their interest was fleeting, and it was very upsetting for parents, and so it just, the dynamics weren't good. But once we added pictures, we found that that 1 in 5 kids, like, their eyes brightened up, and all of a sudden they were happy, and they started to learn to read the words, which is the whole point. So why wouldn't we do something if it's successful? So your child, Flowers, is actually the exact reason why we added pictures to the reading program. And that was a real learning lesson for us. So definitely check out the Doman Learning materials. And I hope it's helpful for your child. Yeah, let me know once you start showing the pictures with the words and tell me if your kid enjoys them. All right. Any other questions out there? And we don't have to just talk about the reading program. I'm happy to take questions about any topics. For any of you who have children with special needs, if you have any concerns about developmental delays that your child has, anything about early childhood education or the Doman Method, I'd love to answer those questions. And I always urge parents, try to get your questions in early, because sometimes all the questions come in at the end, and I don't have time to answer all of the questions. All right, I've got a question here about the Doman oxygenation program. And Sendrak, I'm not sure if I understand your question fully, but she's asking about the program. Which are the requests? Cedric, I might need you to elaborate more, but while you're giving me a bit more information, the Doman Method oxygenation program is one of the 6 components of the Doman Method. So I mentioned earlier that cognition and speech, right? This part of the program is one of 6 different components of the Doman Method. And the oxygenation program is a second of the 6 components. By the way, for all of you who are interested in all 6 components, if you go back to last week's webinar last Monday, I actually show an image with the 6 different components of the Doman Method, and I give an explanation of all 6. So oxygenation is the second component. It's so important because oxygen is the food of the brain, right? And so what we have found is that many children with special needs do not breathe normally. They have shallow breath. They don't have a steady breathing rate. Very often they have low oxygen saturation. So if we put there are devices for measuring oxygen saturation. If we put that on the child, we can see they have low saturation. And that's a problem because if the brain is not getting enough oxygen, it can result in all kinds of symptoms. It can create, some children have increased seizures. Some children have less focus or concentration or energy. Some children speak less. Some children have more spasticity or rigidity in their muscles. So when we start the oxygenation program, we often see improvements in those symptoms, more speech, less rigidity, better control of limbs and muscles, fewer seizures, better focus and concentration, right? So many different areas that can be helped from the oxygenation program. Now, Sandra, I know you're in the Doman Method course right now. We talk about the oxygenation program in the 3rd week of the course. So in the 2nd week of the course, we talk about the cognitive and physical parts of the program. In the 3rd week, we talk about the sensory parts of the program, the oxygenation program, and the nutrition program. So I think you're going to get your questions answered in that 3rd week of the course. We're also, as part of the Doman Method course, we also have live Q&As. You'll have a question and answer session with our respiratory staff, so you can get additional questions answered there. But in that course, we really teach you why we do the oxygenation program, how we get started, and the process for beginning with a child. I hope that's helpful. All right. Khulud is saying, my son is 3 years old. Can I teach him math now? Absolutely. Absolutely. Khulud, so the Doman Method is probably most famous for the reading part of the program, and then probably is second most famous for the math program. When we teach children math, unfortunately, I don't have math materials in front of me right now, so I can't really show you. But the way we start teaching children math is by teaching them using quantities. We teach children how to recognize quantities. And the reason why that's so important is our ability to recognize small quantities is an innate human ability called innate number sense. Innate number sense. And how can I say it's innate? Well, we even see this with 2-year-old children, 3-year-old children who have never been taught math before. If you give one child 4 cookies and another child 2 cookies, they'll look at the plate of the other child and go, hey, they got more than me. Like, I want what they got. Right? That's why it's called innate number sense. And this innate ability, unfortunately, for many children with special needs, because their brain development is affected, they may not have that ability, but we can teach it. And in fact, we can teach it to all children. And innate number sense is so important because it's the foundation of math. Let me demonstrate innate number sense to you right now. I'm going to hold up my hand with a certain number of fingers, right? I'm going to do this. And your brain instantaneously, if you have innate number sense, looked at that and you thought 4. That was the first thing you thought. You did not count. You did not go 1, 2, 3, 4. No. If you have innate number sense, you looked at that and you said, oh, 4. That's our innate ability to recognize quantity. It is the most foundational ability in math. If you do not have that, it makes learning higher math very, very difficult. And some of the top universities in the world, Harvard and Johns Hopkins, have done research where they looked at teenagers with severe math problems. And they researched the teenagers and said, why is it that these teenagers can't learn math and fail in every math course they take? And they realized it's because those children don't have innate number sense. And if you don't have innate number sense, you cannot build on a child's mathematical understanding. Because, for example, if you can't understand this is 3 and you can't understand that this is 2, how are you supposed to add 3 and 2 together to get 5 if you don't even have a concept of what 3 is? And so that's why we focus first on teaching quantities with the Doman method. Once we do that, then teaching math, teaching how to recognize numbers, teaching addition becomes easy, right? It becomes natural for the child because they have the foundational ability. Math is one of these subjects that is completely built on a foundation. If the foundation is weak, everything above it will be weak. One of my most frustrating experiences, this happens every year in media in the United States. Every year, some report is released in the United States that says, why is math education so bad in the US? Why is it that Singapore and Korea are always scoring so high and the US scores so poorly in math? And it's always the same discussion, right? They find when children are like 6 or 7 years old in first and second grade, okay, the US is a little bit behind and the Europe is a little bit behind, but by 4th grade, right, and the difference is big. And then by 6th grade and 8th grade, it's terrible. And every year they always say, oh, we really need to improve our secondary education math. And I look at it and go, no, because the reason why those children are failing in math, the reason why they can't learn division and fractions and decimals is because the foundation is weak, right? In those countries where mathematical understanding is strong, you go to a 6-year-old in a 1st grade classroom in Singapore and you say, hey, what's 8 plus 6? They'll go 14, because they've been taught to have a quick retention and answer in terms of arithmetic ability. But that is built on having a strong foundation in math. And unfortunately, this is not well understood in most educational systems. And children that don't have innate number sense will often fail year after year. It's the most painful thing in the world. They will fail every year in math because they were never given the strong foundation. So that's why we focus so strongly in the Doman method with innate number sense. And so if you're interested in learning more about math education, you can check out the Math Before School course at Doman Learning. If it's a whole course where I teach how to teach math to children, and the materials are also there. And now if you have, again, I'm going to say the same thing I said before. If you have a child with special needs, reach out to Doman International first so we can talk you through what's the best steps to first take with your child. Yeah, we're very passionate about how to teach children math here. Okay, so Shine On, You Crazy Diamond, I love that name, is asking, how many times a day is recommended to do bits of intelligence during the day? Child is 4 years old. Shine On, let me ask, is this a child with any special needs or learning difficulties, or is this a child who is, a well child, developing well, and you're just interested in how to educate the kid? Oh, Khulud is saying, going back to the prior question, thank you, but he's not special needs. I understand that, Khulud, but regardless, you still have to give the child a strong foundation in math. And so in the Math Before School course, we teach you how to teach your child to recognize quantities and then how to move on to teaching a child how to do arithmetic mentally, all mental math. We're very focused on doing mental math with the Doman method because it's far more useful for a child and strengthens their math skills much faster. So yeah, no, I knew that, Lude, and I was saying, I highly recommend the Math Before School course. All right, let's see what other questions we have. Okay, Shine On is responding, having developmental delays, we are doing a reading program. Okay, great. So generally, Shine On, the general recommendation for starting is when we're doing a reading program or we're doing encyclopedic knowledge, we will generally start with 3 times a day for 5 days. 3 times a day, right? So basically 3 different sessions in a day of teaching for 5 days. That's a total repetition amount of 15 times. Now, the reason why I asked if the child has any developmental delays is that sometimes for a small group of children, that's not enough. Sometimes there are children who need more repetition than that. But most of the time, 15 times a day is a really good place to start. I'm really glad that you've started the reading program. Did you learn about our reading and encyclopedic knowledge programs through our books? That's, I guess, my first question. And the second question, have you read the book, The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness? Because if your child has developmental delays, reading and math is kind of the first step. It's a great way to start the Doman Method, but there are other programs that frankly are even more important for children with developmental delays that can help them catch up to their peers that are explained in our books for kids with special needs. So I'd highly recommend that for you. All right, I've got a question here from Jennifer who says, now that the reading program includes pictures, when we add other words which aren't part of the program, should we continue to try to find photos for each word? Good question, Jennifer. I think it depends on the child. If you have a child who is happy and interested in seeing words on their own, then I would say not necessary. But if you find that your child's interest and enthusiasm in the reading program greatly increases with pictures, then I would say yes, do it. Because in the end, the most important thing, doesn't matter if it's the Doman Method or any kind of educational program, the most important thing that will help a child learn something is, are they interested in it? Are they enthusiastic about it? And the answer to those two things is yes, they'll probably learn it, right? And so if your child is interested and enthusiastic without pictures, why add them, right? But if not, then add the pictures. I hope that helps. All right. Neuro Desarrollo is saying, hi, Spencer. I have a son who's 2 years old and 5 months with Down syndrome. We've done the Doman Method course, and my boy is walking independently, and he's really trying to talk. But I would love to know how to help him with fine motor skills. Great question. So the first technique that we would usually do with a child, could be a child with special needs or also a well child, to improve fine motor skills, is actually hanging from a dowel. So what we do is we get a dowel, which is like a rod. We usually begin with a piece of wood about 1 inch in diameter, 1 inch, which is 2.5 centimeters. And we have the child begin just by holding the dowel, and we often begin holding the dowel and we lift the dowel up like this. And so the child's feet come off the floor. And so the child is hanging from the dowel holding their hands. holding the dowel by their hands. And the reason why that's helpful is it helps develop the pincer grasp. Okay. Now, your child is 2 years old, as you said, with Down syndrome. Usually by about 18 months of age, if a child is developing in an average way, by 18 months of age, a child has mastered this ability with both hands, this cortical opposition, also called the pincer grasp, where they can pick things up easily with both hands. But sometimes for children with developmental delays, they're a bit behind. And so hanging can really help improve this ability, because when the child is hanging from a dowel, it improves their sensory ability to feel their hands. It also improves the strength in their fingers and hands. And that's going to be very important for skills like unscrewing a cap off a bottle or taking a cap off a pen, right? Or writing in the future, right? The stronger their fingers are, the more aware they are of their hands, the more their fine motor skills will improve. So, okay, Neo Desarrollo is saying, yes, we do the hanging. He loves hanging. How many times a day do you recommend? Great. So generally, we recommend at least 5 times in a day, at least. But sometimes parents will do even up to 10 times. Okay. Now, you have, even if you're doing 5 sessions in a day, it's very important to put an interval of at least 5 minutes between the different sessions. And so that gives your child's hands time to relax. And then once your child is built up to about 30 seconds of hanging, then he's ready for brachiation, which is the next program for developing fine motor skills. Brachiation is explained in a bunch of our different books. It's explained in the book Fit Baby, Smart Baby, Your Baby by Douglas Doman. That's a book for all parents. Fit Baby, Smart Baby, Your Baby. It's also, brachiation is also explained in the book From Immobility to Walking, which is Douglas Doman, my dad's book about how to bring a special needs child from immobility to walking, and in fact, running and jumping. And I believe it's also explained in the Answering Autism book as well. On the topic of autism, Sliwa says, my child has autism and a problem of vision. Which program do you recommend? Ooh, Sliwa, a lot, a lot of programs to help develop vision. I mean, the reading program, which I was discussing before, can help vision. It's a visual program. In the Doman Method course, we talk about so many different treatments that can help vision. The Doman oxygenation program can help vision. The physical programs of crawling and creeping, having a child crawl on their belly and creep on their hands and knees is very important for vision, because interestingly, the same area of our brain that we use for crawling and creeping activities is also the same area of the brain we use for visual movement, right? And visual control. So interestingly, when we do a lot of crawling and creeping with a child, we see this improvement in their ability to use their eyes and coordinate their vision. So there are other advanced programs that we can teach families, but in terms of kind of the foundational programs that would help vision, oxygenation, reading, crawling, creeping are some of the ones that we would start with. So I'm not sure if we've taken the Doman Method course, but in that course, we talk a lot about different things for vision and special needs. All right, I've got another question here from Jennifer. She said, my son is the same age and also has Down syndrome. He is doing hanging from a bar and it's helping a lot. Great. Oh, that's a comment. Thank you. I appreciate that, Jennifer. He'll be 2 this month and has always favored his left hand for fine motor, even though he's right-handed. Yep. Sometimes that's something that can create a lot of challenges for children, where they're meant to be sided, like right-sided, but sometimes as part of their brain injury, their neurodevelopmental condition, the side which is meant to be dominant is more impacted by the injury. So they're meant to be right-handed, but the left hemisphere of the brain, which controls the right side of the body. I don't know if everyone knows that, but the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. The right hemisphere of the brain controls the left side of the body. So unfortunately, if the dominant hemisphere is affected more by the brain injury, that can create a lot of challenges for kids, because all of a sudden the side that's supposed to be dominant and stronger for them is weaker. So yeah, absolutely. For a child like your kid, hanging is going to help a lot. Oh, so Jennifer's saying hanging has changed that, and now he uses his right hand. Amazing. That's exactly what we want to hear. Radharani is saying, how important are water activities for special needs children, Down syndrome child 4.5 years, like swimming, or bathtub activities, resources, if any? Well, you've come to the right source, because my dad, Douglas, wrote a book called How to Teach Your Baby to Swim. How to Teach Your Baby to Swim. I'll put it up on the screen. Okay. So How to Teach Your Baby to Swim by Douglas Doman. And let me see, can I show there it is. That's the title of the book. And Radharani, you should definitely check out the book. It has bathtub activities, like you mentioned, and then it talks about how to graduate a child to the pool. And then Radharani, in addition to a lot of swimming programs, you ask how important is swimming. Swimming is a really beneficial program, but that being said, it's not the most. It's not the most. Like, you've heard me mention a lot of different parts of the program today: the oxygenation program, the cognitive program, mobility program. Those programs, I would say, are all more important than swimming. Swimming also, there are certain challenges that come with swimming. A lot of children have increased illness. A lot of children swallow water, and that can lead to exposure to chlorine. I've been working with a child who was just doing amazing with our program, and unfortunately, he went on vacation and just spent a lot of time swimming in a pool, drank a lot of the water. He developed an ear infection. Now this child who's been diagnosed with autism is having a lot of issues from that experience. And so I do like to warn parents about that. As much as we love swimming, I mean, my father, Douglas, wrote a whole book about it, but you really have to be careful, especially with kids with special needs. They tend to be more physiologically sensitive, so they're more prone to illness. And sometimes, especially if you're bringing them to an indoor pool that's chlorinated, sometimes it's more problem than help. And so just be aware of that fact. I'm putting also here the name of both the book and the course, The Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness, right? So we have a book with that title. And I mentioned that because a lot of you are asking about programs for kids with special needs. So I recommend you look into that book, because we talk in that book about foundational Doman Method programs for kids with developmental delays. And then we've got an online course, the next with the same name. The next online course, we have 2 online courses starting August 8th in English. The first is called the Doman Method from Special Needs to Wellness. And then we're having, for the first time ever, the Answering Autism course, which is a course just for parents with kids with autism. So both of those courses are starting on August 8th. All right. Let's see. Am I all out of options? I might be. All right, everyone. I think we are all out of questions. Thanks so much for joining. As I said to all of you, last week, I plan to do this webinar at this time for as many weeks as possible, back to back, especially during the summer. So, please keep tuning in. If there are other parents who are interested in our program, please let them know about this webinar. And I really look forward to next week. All right. Bye-bye.